science technology is going to be a big factor. And I want to say, if we are going to create this, and through the Vision 2030, which we are actually putting all our resources in the country today, and to help the people of Kenya, specifically us as East Africans, we can see that Kenya has taken a very positive stride in making sure that technology is a factor, and more so ICT creation in our country. We have done a lot, especially in backbone and creating networks all over the country. And this is one of the reasons, and I want to support this motion by making sure that Science Museum is given an opportunity and given resources as part of the growth. And as you look at it, Mr. Speaker, today, artificial intelligence is the order of the day. And we cannot be left behind as a country. And using this museum, Science Museum, I want to say it's going to give us a very positive results going forward as a country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Kibagendi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion. Science museums that are also known as science centers or discovery centers have made learning exciting in developed countries. It is important that we invest in these, in setting up these centers, these discovery centers that will make science learning accessible, and this will definitely provide the educational facilities that we may need for emerging generations to learn more effectively methods of learning in matters science, tech, and engineering. And hence, it is the reason why I rise to support my brother KJ for coming up with this motion that will definitely revolutionize the way future generations will learn. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Mboko Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was quite disappointed recently when exams began. And one of the things that is being really taken care of, using both guns and policemen and everybody supervising, is the phone. And you know, for the longest time, I did not have a chance to speak on this for other reasons or another. But when I see this motion raised by KJ, I realize that there's hope in us legislating well so that we can have a laboratory that can store technology. When you look at the policemen around examination centers guarding anybody who may appear with a phone, and therefore a phone seems to be a very sensitive gadget, which if it's around an examination center, it can be used for stealing or accessing exams. I just pity ourselves and where we are in terms of technology and what we are storing. Because for me, a phone should have been an enabler. You remember, you are not, Honorable Speaker, very close to me in terms of the same time being in school, Honorable Speaker, with all respect. But there's a time when a log book was not allowed in an examination room. And do you know that the FX was, or was it FX82 calculator, could not end an examination? If you are found with a calculator in an examination room, it would be advertised all over this country that those boys stole exams because they had a calculator. Now, a calculator is a requirement for you to sit for an exam. How I wish these are the businesses we should deal with so that our phone is an enabler. I want to see that day when we shall be told that come to school, come to an exam room and have the following things: a ruler, a calculator, a phone, and other things. That's when technology will be developed. Thank you so much.
The Honorable Owen Bayer, the Deputy Majority Leader, will be followed by the Minority Whip. Then the mover will reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the future is science. The future of this world is science. And it is science that has made nations great. And it is deliberate investment in science, in schools, in universities, and in the national capital. That is where we move a country. Because everything that we look at the great innovation coming from Kenya, M-Pesa, and how it has transformed everything in this country. Today, if you want food, Safaricom, M-Pesa. If you want medical services, whatever you want now is based on science. All transactions we do, science. So science is the future. And a country that aspires to be a great nation must invest in science. A great country, nation like the United States is great because they started investing in science. You know, okay, I'll forgive you for today. So, Honorable Speaker, if we must be a great nation, then we must invest deliberately in science. What Mwai Kibaki had in his mind when the KWANZA city was started, he thought that, and if you look at Vision 2030, there's great space for science. But then why should we have a science museum? The world over, if you look at great places, if you go to New York, you find a science museum. If you go to New Delhi, you'll find a science museum. If you go to London, you'll find a science museum. You'll find science museums. But why do we have science museums? So that people can see how science has progressed and where it is going. And that is what is critical. How do our young people, imaginations and innovators who want to be scientists, how do they know where science is going? Now, when we have science museums, the way these young people come to this parliament, and when they see what is in this parliament, and they experience what is in this parliament, they go out there and aspire to be members of parliament. Same way, if we take our young people to those science museums, they will want to be scientists, and therefore we grow the science corpus in them. Honorable Speaker, this is very timely, that as we look at CBC, which has areas of science and areas of arts, then how do we therefore enhance science, even for the young people in the remotest village in Uyombo, in my constituency, should be able to come to Nairobi or Mombasa to a science museum, look at the development in science that have been preserved there, and say, I also want to be a scientist. These young people study science, but they do not know where it has come from. If you look at, if you go to New York, you will see when these guys, the energy, the electricity, there's a museum on this guy who started the electricity. And every New Yorker will go to that museum to see how electricity started. And therefore, they come out and develop new energy, including the electrical car that is very popular. Because they have gone there, they have seen. And that's why countries are developing rapidly in science, because they have invested in preserving science and having science museums and allowing their people to see what science is. So, Honorable Speaker, I would like to see this country go science, because that is where the future is. Of course, those of you who are in arts, you know, the lawyers here, Milo Diambo, you, other people do not understand this language. Scientists like I and a few others understand that investment in science is investing in the future. These guys who just talk in courts and talk and think they can eat words, you know, have very little to, they are consumers of money, they are not makers of wealth. We want to create wealth. And the only way we can create wealth in this country is through science. Look at the great things science has done in agriculture. Agriculture has been transformed by science today. And that's why there's better production. Manufacturing is science. We want to go that way. You know, ICT is science. That's where we want to go to. So, Honorable Speaker, I would like to see 3/4 of this country go science. And we will get leaps and bounds in development. So, Honorable Speaker, as much as many young people want to become lawyers and people who can talk, poets and people like that, yes, they are there to entertain and give life, meaning to life. But we need to be producers, and we can only be producers through science, engineers, doctors, mechanics, all those kind of people, and we will have a secure country, a better future. I support this, and I want to see the next museum, science museum, in the next 1 year in Nairobi or in my village. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Nbaya, I will engage you as a social scientist after this. I know you're a Fulbright, scholar, but you will get to know that lawyers, in fact, the best lawyer we have, Lord Denning, was a mathematician. And yours truly here is a very good scientist. Yeah, the Honorable Millie Odhiambo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's indeed actually divine that I've got an opportunity to speak after my brother, who is alleging that science is better than the art. I just want to indicate, when I was actually in Form 2, when we were choosing subjects, I was one of the best science students. And when I was actually, the classes were divided and we had to be forced to go either art or science. And I refused to do sciences. And I was suspended for 2 weeks for refusing to do sciences. And I went back to school. And because I'm glad I've always been a bad girl, even despite that suspension, I still refused. And the way I refused was to sit an exam, and knowing all the answers, I answered negatively and got 0%. And I was chased out of the science class, not because I was not smart, but because I knew at that point where I am headed, because I knew even though I made a very good scientist, I make an excellent artist. And Mr. Speaker, I have come to realize that our brothers who are in sciences will work on the science issues, but unless you have brains like us in the arts who can deal with protecting your sciences, then you'll not go far with your science. And that is why in my law class, I did my thesis for its intellectual property rights on plant genetic resources, which is part of the basis of what we are discussing here. And that is why I'd actually requested that I be given a chance to talk about the Science Museum, which is under Article 11(2)(b) of the Constitution, that provides that the government shall recognize the role of science and indigenous technologies. Mr. Speaker, the essence of my thesis was that in Africa, we have indigenous knowledge, indigenous technology, indigenous plants that are beneficial, but other communities come and take them, patent them, and sell them back to us. I've given an example of Mwarubaine. I've given an example of Endor, the Ethiopian plant in the past in this house, that has actually helped to unclog the system in the US. Of course, it is sad that I'm mentioning US at a point when Kamala Harris has lost, but nonetheless, I don't care whether she's lost or not. I am consistent in supporting women publicly, and so the loss of Kamala Harris is my loss. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that back to my science issue, I just want to indicate that...
Honorable Millie Odhiambo, the last time I checked, Democrats can't define a woman.
Can't do what?
Can't define a woman.
Define?
A woman.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in our quarters where we are, you have always declared you are Republican. But I want to actually say that this is one of the American elections where I've been torn. On the one hand, I'm not a Trump supporter because he doesn't support the women's agenda, and I'm a very ardent supporter of women. But on the other hand, the reason why I've been torn is because of the role the Americans played in the last elections. So what goes back comes back, bites you the way it bit us. So let them live with that. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, but I'm still mourning the loss of Kamala Harris. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, let America also learn to keep off elections of other places and other areas. So it was sad, I would have really, but they've helped me because my pain is minimized somehow. Mr. Speaker, I do support my brother in this science museum because our younger people will be able to learn a lot of things that our ancestors used, our grandfathers used, our fathers used, that we have considered archaic because of new and emerging technologies. Yet these things are the ones that actually been the base for emerging technologies. So I really do thank my brother for this noble idea, and I hope that we do put resources into this, but also that it would be an example that we shouldn't only because here is talking about technologies. It's just that I've come in a bit late, but I'd have wanted to put not just technology, but indigenous knowledge as well. Because, Mr. Speaker, you discover that there's a lot of indigenous knowledge. For instance, as I've indicated, of beneficial properties of plant genetic resources. My grandfather knew almost every cure for snake bites. But now I ask everybody at home, nobody knows, because it was not stored. There was no way of storing that kind of system. So now if somebody is bitten, because in our shags, in our rural home, there are many, many snakes, yeah? Even though now because of increased settlement, they've gone down. And because of that, they observed the way snakes, when they fight, that they can actually use some plants, and he became an expert. But who knows about that anyway? No, nobody. There are medicines for curing cancer, but yet we are having people struggling with cancer when we have herbal medicine. So for me, one of the other things that you should have actually done, Honorable Member, maybe now because you are bringing it as a motion, when you bring a bill, the bill is there. Oh, thank you. Then in the bill, please don't just provide for technology, provide for knowledge as well. Otherwise, this is an excellent idea, and I do support. Thank you.
I've seen new interest from Honorable Edith Nyenze. Could she speak before the mover replies? She will be followed by the Honorable Basil. I thought we agreed we should be winding up this quickly. We want to go to the committee of the whole House. Proceed, Honorable Edith Nyenze.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate John Kiarie for bringing up this motion on creating science museums. These museums actually will collect and display objects having scientific interests, and this will stimulate curiosity and develop inquiry minds, which will expose our children and adults to positive experiences. And actually, this will help people to cope with the rapidly changing technological environment and empower them by improving their life skills. Mr. Speaker, sir, last month, I had the opportunity of traveling to India with the CEO of innovations in the social protection, social department, social protection department, and he had actually assembled 14 vice chancellors, and I also visited with them a university in Hyderabad in Telangana in India. And actually, we visited this university, and what this university does is that it assembles students, university students, after their O-levels. They collect the best brains in India, and they are actually assembled in this university. They don't pay any school fees. They are not taught. They are only taught a few units on innovation, and they are left on their own to come up with different projects, different innovations. And from those innovations, they collect them and come up with the best, and these ones are actually implemented in the country. These projects, these ideas are actually also supported in, worldwide. The best ones are supported. For example, I even saw a remote controlled vehicle where I also traveled in, and this one is the students who have come up with it. So such a museum would actually be very good to collect information. It will be a very good science museum, which can also source for funding. It can also come up, come up with the implementation of such projects, which would encourage our students. Because actually in Kenya, we also have very innovative very innovative young people, very innovative youth. So it's the right time, it's the high time. We tapped these innovations, we encouraged them, we sponsored them, and such a museum would actually be a center where even our young people can learn, and all people can learn about innovation, and they continue having big brains to even improve the economy in our country. We've always talked about high rate of unemployment, and these innovations can actually help in meeting the needs of employment in our country. So with that, I support the motion. Thank you.
Honorable Robert Basil, the MP for
Yata MP. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, you know I was supporting Kamala, and I know you are supporting Trump, so congratulations for that. From onset, I support this motion coming from my brother, KJ, protecting me, Mr. Speaker, from Honorable. Kaluma was for Trump, and that's why today is a big day for him. Yeah, so from onset, I support my brother KJ. Basically, we are in the technology world. And if you look at countries like Japan, they have been able to industrialize because of technology. If you look at countries like Israel, they export technology. That is what we refer as exponential age. And when I hear of science, myself, I love science. And a science museum is actually what is going to align us in the technology and innovation path and make us a progressive nation from a technology front. So in principle, science museum should be embraced. And the KNJ did the right thing to bring this motion. So, Mr. Speaker, I would tell you that with the technology, our young people who are not very much preoccupied will be put into a busy programs where they'll have a chance to discover, explore, and test ideas. So it is the best way, Mr. Speaker, to make our youth get to use technology and science and actually mitigate the level of idleness and drug abuse, which we have witnessed for the last couple of years, simply because most of our young people today, with the level of education we are acquiring, you find they cannot be able to employ themselves. So with having science museum deployed in many parts of this country, you'll find that the youth will be able to test ideas and be able to become more employable in the years to come. So with those few remarks, I urge members to support this motion so that at least we can move to crafting a bill to make Science Museum a reality in this country. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I submit.
the MP for Kajiado East, the Honorable Kakuta Memai.
Kajiado East. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support this motion by my good friend and chairperson of the Innovation, Communication and Information Committee, KJ. This is a wonderful idea to start a science museum in Kenya. This will give our young people a chance to, of course, explore the field of science, natural sciences, and able to exhibit their creation, their innovations, and we will also be able to showcase the innovations that has taken place in different parts of the world, and perhaps that will also become an inspiration and encouragement for our young people to also become innovative and creative. So I think this is a very important museum, and I hope that it will get the support that it needs to be established, and perhaps also get enough funding to be funded so that it will not just become a museum in paper, but it will actually be actualized. Because I've also seen in the existing museum, like the National Museum, many times I do visit that museum because I really have a great appreciation for the arts, but many times you find it underfunded, and not been able to achieve what was intended to achieve. So I hope that this museum, science museum, will be actualized and will give our people a chance to be able to see and bring innovation for generations to come. So I stand to support this motion by my good friend KJ, and I hope, of course, the bill will also be supported and be detailed enough to help us bring a wonderful science museum in Kenya and inspire innovation, creation, and innovation for our young people. Thank you, and I support.
The Honorable Beatrice Kemei.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to this very important motion by the chairman and my good friend, KJ, concerning the establishment of a science museum in this country. Honorable Speaker, I appreciate the fact that in the Constitution, Article 11(2)(p), it provides that the government shall recognize the role of science and indigenous technologies. However, this has not been done from 2010 to date. And that is why I appreciate the MP for bringing it forth today, that a science museum be established. And noting this, Honorable Speaker, that it will, when it is established, the country will greatly be impacted economically. Science plays a very key and important role in this country. Noting that even in school, the way Honorable Millie spoke, when I was also in high school, it tells you where we belong. There was the science part and the arts, and very few students were in the science department or in the science section, but very many were in the arts. But at the moment, we have all the students doing science. But after that, what happens? Where do we take them? It is like even those who have talents that are science-oriented, they have nowhere to take to. So with this science museum, I am sure they will be able even to take their talents to the next level. We will be able to tap what they have. They will be very innovative. We have many youths who in their knowledge in school and even the talents they have, they are able to do something that is science-oriented, but they have nowhere else to practice the same and even to showcase what they have. So I really want to thank the Honorable John Kiarie for bringing it forth. And I believe once this is established, we'll be more industrialized, and knowing that most of our youth at the moment have no jobs. So when we become industrialized, definitely most of our youth will be employed, not in the mainstream, but they will be even self-employed. So science is important. The museum is very, very important for us, and therefore I support. But I feel it should not just be a motion, it should go further. I believe John Kiarie will take it further to make it as a bill or craft it into a bill, and it will be very, very important for this. Once more, Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I stand to support. Thank you.
Lastly, the majority whip, in the shortest time possible. Mover, prepare to reply.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to air my views in support of the motion as proposed by the Honorable KJ. Honorable Speaker, there is a misconception, and a very bad misconception, that innovation is a preserve for the people from the West. And that any good innovation, sometimes by our own sons and daughters in this country, is sometimes doubted. That you would even ask, if it's a phone, for instance, who made this phone? If you hear that it was assembled from some place, maybe in Kitengela or Kisii, then you'll have a second thought, even of purchasing it. This is a wrong misconception, Honorable Speaker. This is a misconception, Honorable Speaker. It's a wrong perception. It's a wrong narrative. It is displaying that we actually wait to consume what others innovate, Honorable Speaker. But Honorable Speaker, this motion, if Honorable KJ can escalate it even further, so that we can appreciate our own innovation, Honorable Speaker. It is actually in this country that M-Pesa, for example, was actually innovated. We do not have such repository kept in some place for other learners or the generations to come to know how even Safaricom was innovated. People always think that, those people who are supposed to think are different and not them. And that is why we are creating, or rather growing, a very lazy generation, Honorable Speaker. Looking at the generation that we have, Honorable Speaker, if these things are not so made obvious by creating such platforms like the Science Museum, people will always think that such kind of creativity is only meant for some place or some people or some very prestigious universities or some places where they only imagine or see in movies, Honorable Speaker. So this is a clear indication, Honorable Speaker, that the leadership of this country, of course, even by looking at the contributions by the honorable members, Honorable Speaker, if we are able to push through this, even as we push through the ITs, pushing through having ICTs in every ward, in every village, Honorable Speaker, these science museums will go a long way in opening the mindset of our young people, Honorable Speaker. Because they say, if you do not travel so much and you live in the village, you'll actually think that the githeri that is made by your mother is the sweetest in the world. You do not know that there are people who actually know how to make that githeri more. In fact, I even dare say, Honorable Speaker, that you will be sick of a disease I call villagitis. Because you are born in the village, you marry around your village, you get sick, you go to your village, you die, you are buried in your village. Every person that attends your burial is from your village. These science museums will bring the world closer to you. You will know that things are made. Honorable Speaker, I'll give a very small story. When I first went to my constituency, Honorable Speaker, to seek for votes, and I've met some young people, because I was driving some car with the air suspension that would go low when it's not moving and then go high when it's moving. And I saw some young 3-4 men, young men in their 30s, mid-30s, standing somewhere and saying, this guy is black. You can't even see him inside. This is a snake. This guy does not know. This is a snake. Where does he even get his money from? This is an Illuminati guy. Because of villagitis. A person thinking that, these things are a preserve of some people and not in that village. And that is why this motion, Honorable Speaker, Honorable KJ needs to be challenged to escalate it even further so that we are able to support the next generations. For that reason, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support, but with one right, Honorable Speaker, I was surprised by the comments that were made by the Honorable Millie Odhiambo about the U.S. elections, Honorable Speaker. I have known Honorable Millie as a well-experienced politician, but I didn't know that with her years of experience, she couldn't predict and know clearly that her candidate would lose, because it was in black and white. It was outright. I mean, I want to inform her. Let me inform her, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is Honorable Osoro, in order to impute improper motive on me by inferring that I only follow candidates who are likely to win, when in fact I am a woman of principle and I follow people based on my conviction and on my principle. And I follow Kamala Harris, one, because her name sounds Luya, but secondly, because she's a woman. And I support women wherever they are found, especially if she does not have any stain. I know people have been imputing some of the things that the current president has done on her, but she's a woman. I support her whether she wins or she fails. I am a woman, strength of a woman, whether we win or lose, women.
I thought Honorable Osoro was saying he didn't quite understand the policies of of Kamala, Vice President Kamala Harris, whom you are supporting. Not that she's a woman. Anyway, Honorable Osoro, proceed.
Let me conclude, Honorable Speaker, and say that the Honorable Kamala and many other women, should we keep encouraging them not to use only the gender card in selling their policies. There are so many things you can tell the public other than saying, you know, I'm a woman, now elect me. And that is why with that policies, Honorable Speaker. But there is one thing to celebrate, and I think this is to Honorable Millie, that the House representative or the Minnesota State, Honorable Speaker, a Kisi woman that I met and had dinner with on 23rd of May 2024, has actually won the seat. At least for that one we can celebrate because we are linked to that. But I also want to take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, in advance to appreciate the people of America for electing a man, a strong man, in the name of Donald Trump. The world is moving in the right direction. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Mover to reply.
Honorable Speaker, I would want to invoke Standing Order number 1 and call upon your discretion to allow me to donate just 4 minutes, 2 minutes actually, a minute to the Honorable Waungo and the Honorable Wakili Geshimo. A minute each.
Honorable Dick Maungu.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Allow me first and foremost to appreciate my good brother KJ for having donated a minute to me, and more so for coming up with such a brilliant motion. I must say that to start with, I'm in full support, and I support this motion because it has come at a point in time when the world is all about science. Mr. Speaker, the world today is science, the world tomorrow is science. And therefore, any idea that comes in to crystallize this one is an idea that is highly welcome, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we live in a very creative world, a world full of creativity and innovations. And all this can be secured by having a science museum, so that those who are here today, those who are here tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, can actually know the origin of what is taking place. More so in Kenya, at a point in time when we are having the CBC, Mr. Speaker. CBC, as you all know, has come in at a good time, Mr. Speaker, and there's no better way in which CBC can be entrenched or supported other than having a science museum that will go a long way, Mr. Speaker, in enabling our kids back in the rural areas to be, to get proper training, proper learning, and be able to actually realize what science can do. All I can call upon is that my brother can maybe be able to promote this motion into a bill so that now we can have it better secured for the good of our country. Otherwise, I oblige and I support the bill. Thank you.
The Honorable Gichimu, Senior Counsel.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thanks for the prayers that one day I'll be a senior counsel. And Honorable Speaker, I support this bill, this motion, which is very progressive. And as many of the members and my colleagues have said, this is a motion that is worth supporting to become a bill and eventually a law that will guide on matters, science, and innovation, so that it can be a science and innovation bill, and we are ready to support Honorable KJ or any other member who comes up with such a bill. Honorable Speaker, at this time that we have CBC, there's an avenue that will be utilized by students that is called STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I believe this science museum will be of great benefit to these students. And going forward, actually, when I was growing up, we used to have what we call science congresses. We used to have competition in science, and there used to be very good innovations then. Where are they? These are the innovations that could be domiciled in such a museum for the future generations to know that others can also learn from innovations that have been done by others. So in a nutshell, I really support. I know I don't have much to say about it, but because a lot of members have supported it, I totally agree with them, and I support Honorable Speaker, and thank you for that opportunity.
Honorable KJ, can you reply in the shortest time possible?
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you. And I also want to thank all the members who have spoken to this motion, starting from the members who spoke on the 3rd of October and the members who have contributed this morning. Mr. Speaker, all the contributions have spoken to the fact that Kenya needs a repository for our scientific technology and our knowledge. They have spoken to the fact that Kenya needs a center for scientific education and development, and including research, Mr. Speaker. All the speakers have spoken to the fact that we need to develop a mecca for educational field visits, especially at the time that this, when we have CBC education, Mr. Speaker. More importantly, members have said that Kenya cannot slip through the 4th industrial revolution. We must test new technology that will be useful into the future. And this science museum lends itself as a good place to domicile a sandboxing center, where we can sandbox technology before it is deployed to the public, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, members have said that this could be a good center for emerging, an institute for emerging technology. Mr. Speaker, all these contributions are speaking to the main fact that I spoke to when I was moving this motion, Mr. Speaker, where I said that Africa cannot continue being considered as a technological dwarf. We must disabuse this notion that Africa is a technological dwarf. Mr. Speaker, when I was moving this motion, I did point to scientific marvels that have come out of Africa, Mr. Speaker. Scientifically, Africa was a scientific giant, and we must restore this, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Millie Odhiambo brought a very important point, that we must stop drawing a dichotomy between the sciences and the arts. And you spoke very well, Mr. Speaker, that you being a social scientist, being a lawyer, does not stop you from being a scientist, Mr. Speaker. I have spent the better part of my adult life as an artist, Mr. Speaker. However, in 1995, if you go to the records, you shall find that the winning project at the Kenya National Science Congress, at the Kenya Science Teachers College, that project belonged to yours truly, the one and only John K.J. Carey. He was a champion in science, Mr. Speaker. But that did not stop me from going into the areas of drama, into the areas of journalism, into the areas of media, into the areas of other emerging performing and visual arts, Mr. Speaker. So this idea of drawing a dichotomy between the sciences and the arts is leading us to where we are today, having a gross shortage in science teachers, Mr. Speaker. So if Kenya is seeking for that pole position in the new world of emerging technologies known as the 4th Industrial Revolution, the world of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, if we are seeking for a pole position in this new world, we must also deliberately develop the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics field without cutting them away from the arts. Mr. Speaker, to your point, a surgeon today needs to be an amazing artist. If a surgeon was not a good artist, they stand the risk of botching up an operation on a girl who has gone for a CS operation to a point where this girl might never want to wear a bikini again in her life. This surgeon is needed to be an artist so that when they conduct surgery, they do not leave you with the scars like the ones I was left with after the post-election violence of 2007-2008, when the operation was botched by a scientist who is not an artist. But an artist also, Mr. Speaker, has to be a scientist. You cannot be a good sculptor if you do not understand the science of civic engineering or civil engineering, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this place that we are seeking to be a science museum, Mr. Speaker, is not speaking against the museums that exist. There was a point made here in the contributions that there already exist museums of natural history. Mr. Speaker, allow me to say that the Museum of Natural History is in every sense a dead museum, where you put taxidermies and old animals and old artifacts. But a science museum is a living museum. But in a language that we must preserve, Mr. Speaker, they say, itini nanagira anyeki. To translate that is to say that if you go to London, you shall find on one street the science of art, the science of natural history, the science museum, all of them put together in one street as museums lined up in a way that all of them do attract the publics that they need to. Finally, Mr. Speaker, in establishing a science museum, we shall be bringing science home. Mr. Speaker, Kenya is the cradle of mankind. And by being the cradle of mankind, it means that science and technology was birthed in this country. And what has happened over the years, Mr. Speaker, is that because of brain drain, we have bled so much technological minds to other capitals. Today, Mr. Speaker, if you go to the London Science Museum, it is one Kenyan by the name of Professor Washington Yoto, who is the chairperson of the Science Museum in London, the Science Museum group that has more than 5 science museums in the world. Such brains, Mr. Speaker, can be domiciled here in Kenya. At KWANZA, if we establish a science museum, we can get these amazing brains that are out there to come and establish this museum and lead it to be the first science museum, not only in East Africa, but also in Africa generally. Mr. Speaker, mine was to thank all the members, as I was replying, to say that we have an opportunity here. Even as other jurisdictions are presenting committees of the future, we as Parliament, before we decide to bring a committee of the future to this House, allow us to start by setting the pace, by establishing a science museum that becomes a repository for our African traditional and emerging technologies, to showcase them to the world, to preserve them, and to ensure that Africa does not remain as a scientific dwarf that it is referred to. Mr. Speaker, I thank you profusely. I also thank all the members who have contributed to this debate, and I also want to tell the members that the science museum, the establishment of a science museum bill is already in the works, and I shall be asking you to support it when it finally comes to the House. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable John Kiari. The question to the motion will be put the next time. It will be scheduled by the House Business Committee for the convenience of the House. Next order.
Order number 10, Committee of the Whole House.
Very well, members, you may take your places as we go into the Committee of the Whole House. We want to consider the Kenya Drugs Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 54 of 2022. This bill had been dealt with up to clause number 54, so we shall begin with clause 55. It had gone for winnowing as the instructions were given by the Speaker then, and I'm sure many concessions have been agreed upon by the Chair and the members who had amendments. And therefore, this should pave way for us to move much faster than we were moving when it appeared on the order paper. So we may proceed.